Okay, settle in because what I'm about to tell you, it's not just a story, it's something that, it genuinely changed me. Like, fundamentally altered how I see the world. And honestly, it still gives me chills just thinking about it. Before I dive in, if you like true horror and want more stories like this, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. Hey everyone, and welcome back. Tonight I'm going to share something with you that to this day makes the hairs on my arms stand up. You know, you hear about haunted places, you see the movies, but until you've actually felt that cold, suffocating dread, it's different. What happened to me? Well, it all started with a trip to a certain farmhouse in Rhode Island, a place many of you might know as the Conjuring House. And let me tell you, what the Perron family endured, I got a tiny, terrifying glimpse of it. So, a little about me. My name's Alex and I was a paranormal enthusiast. Not a ghost hunter per se, but I was always fascinated by the unexplained. I'd read every book, watched every documentary, especially anything about the truly infamous cases. And of course the Perron family story, the one from the movie The Conjuring, always captivated me. This old farmhouse in Burrillville, Rhode Island, with its deep, dark history, I just had to see it. It was about 5 years ago. The house, after being sold by the Perrons, had gone through a few owners, and at that time, it was being opened up for overnight stays to a select few. I managed to snag a reservation. My goal wasn't to prove anything, you know? It was more about experiencing the atmosphere, seeing if I could feel any of the residual energy people talked about. I went alone. Looking back, that was probably my first mistake. When I first pulled up the gravel driveway, the house looked exactly as you'd imagine. Old, weathered, with a sort of tired, heavy presence. It was late autumn, the trees bare, the air crisp and still. The first night was, honestly, pretty uneventful. A few creaks, the usual sounds an old house makes. I even started to feel a bit silly, thinking maybe it was all just hype. But then the second night, that's when things started to subtly shift. I was in one of the upstairs bedrooms, the one they said was particularly active. I remember trying to fall asleep, and I kept hearing this whispering, like hushed conversations just outside the door, but whenever I'd sit up and listen, it would vanish. Then a few minutes later, it would start again. It was almost like a teasing, a taunting. I tried to convince myself it was the wind or the house settling, but the whispers sounded too human, too deliberate. And the temperature. I'd be lying in bed feeling perfectly fine, and then suddenly this cold spot would just materialize in the room. Not a draft, just a distinct pocket of icy air that would drift across the room, usually towards me, before dissipating. It was unsettling, but I was still rationalizing, you know? Old house, bad insulation, all that jazz. But a part of me, a growing part, was starting to get a knot in my stomach. The third night, the rationalization started to crumble. I was in the kitchen making some tea, and I heard what sounded like footsteps coming from the attic directly above. Slow, deliberate steps, like someone was pacing. My heart started to pound, because I knew for a fact I was the only one in the house. I called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Of course, no answer. The footsteps just continued. I remember staring up at the ceiling, my breath catching in my throat. It wasn't just old house sounds anymore, this was undeniable. Later that night, the activity ramped up. I was in the living room trying to read when a small antique music box on the mantelpiece, one I hadn't touched, suddenly opened on its own. The delicate, tinkling melody started playing, completely unprompted. I froze. My eyes were glued to it, and my hand instinctively went to my mouth. It played for maybe 10 seconds before clattering shut, just as suddenly as it opened. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just an old house. This place was truly occupied. And then, the smell. A truly foul odor, like rotting meat and something else. something cloying and sweet, like stale perfume. It would come and go, in waves, strong enough to make you gag. I'd frantically check around, thinking something had died in the walls, but there was never any source. It just appeared. That's when the paranoia started to truly set in. I felt like I was being watched, constantly. Every shadow seemed to deepen. Every creak seemed to carry an unseen presence. Sleep became impossible. It was the early hours of the fourth morning. I was in the master bedroom, the one they say was the epicenter of the most intense activity, the one where Bathsheba Sherman, the alleged witch, supposedly cursed the land. I was just lying there, wide awake, eyes scanning the dark room when I saw it. At the foot of the bed, a shadowy figure. It was tall, gaunt, and vaguely human-shaped, but it wasn't solid. It was like a ripple in the darkness, a deeper black against the already dim room. It just stood there, motionless. My breath hitched. I couldn't scream, couldn't move. I was paralyzed by a fear so profound, so utterly primal, I'd never experienced anything like it. And then, a sound. Not a whisper this time. A low, guttural growl that seemed to vibrate through the very floorboards beneath me. It wasn't coming from the figure, but from all around me. The air grew impossibly heavy, suffocating. I felt an immense pressure building on my chest, like something was pushing down on me, trying to pin me to the bed. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst through my ribs. The shadowy figure at the foot of the bed seemed to lean in, and I felt an icy cold brush against my face like a skeletal hand. I closed my eyes, squeezed them shut, and just prayed. I'd never been particularly religious, but in that moment, I was begging for it to stop, for it to go away. I don't know how long it lasted. It felt like an eternity. When I finally dared to open my eyes, the figure was gone. The growling had ceased. The pressure was lifted. But the room was still filled with a chilling, residual cold. I was drenched in sweat, trembling uncontrollably. I couldn't believe it. I grabbed my bag, stumbled out of the house, and drove until the sun came up. I didn't look back. I never went back to that house, not even close. For months afterward, I was a wreck. Every creak in my own apartment made me jump. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, convinced I could still smell that foul odor or hear those hushed whispers just outside my door. I developed a severe case of insomnia and a general anxiety that still lingers. I stopped reading about the paranormal. The fascination was gone, replaced by a deep-seated dread. It's like once you've seen behind the curtain, once you've truly felt that kind of terror, you can't unsee it. The most disturbing part? Sometimes when I'm completely alone in the dead of night, I still hear that low, guttural growl, and it sounds oddly close. So that's my story of the Conjuring House. It's not just a movie, it's a place where something truly malevolent resides. And if you're ever tempted to visit, maybe think twice. New episodes coming tomorrow at 7 p.m. Don't miss it.